Oakley. The PPJ is online, and this is TS Radio. It has been a busy, busy week. Anyway, we have back with us this week again, David Jose. Do you pronounce it Jose or Jose?
Jose.
Jose. Okay. Out here where I live, it's pronounced Jose. So I just wondered. And then also, of course, our good friend Brian Kinter. Hi, Brian. How you doing?
I'm good, Marty. It's always a pleasure to be on here with you folks.
Good. We're gonna pick up a conversation we started last week that really kind of stirred a fire in people when David brought up the idea of, or the fact of, courts of record. What's a court of record and what isn't? And I think one of you is on speaker. If you are, could you take that off, please?
Hold on 1 second. That's me. Hold on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that.
Give me 1 second to get that off.
Okay.
I got a new phone, so you got to forgive me. It takes a little second to figure out how to do things. So.
All right.
Can you guys hear me better?
All right. Yeah, I'm not getting any feedback now. But David had mentioned last week about courts of record, which absolutely lit people up. And I've been hearing about it all week, and people have been waiting for him to come back on because people had no idea that there was this difference in courts. I mean, we knew the difference between, state and federal court and municipal court and this court and that court. But he talked about courts of record. And it really caught people's attention. So this week we're going to pick up on that, and he's going to be talking about that and about how that relates to jurisdiction, whether they even have jurisdiction. But that's where we're going to be going with that this week. So with that, David, being said, give us just a background again, just a primer on what are courts of record and what are not.
Okay, so pretty much courts of record have 4.5 to 5 characteristics. What we are used to, and I did something earlier this week or late last week to prove what I'm saying here. Because we have a very good attorney who is literally what I believe is the best in juvenile courts in the United States, being Connie Reguli. And I had a discussion with the people telling them that the courts that we are working in, or with CPS issues and different things like that, APS issues, are not courts of record. And so I know she felt that they were courts of record. And what I told the people before she happened to come onto one of our videos, I told the people that back in the day, around 1938 and a little bit before, the bar members started to be deceived when it came to the definition of court of record. So in order for star chamber type courts to be used, and in order for people who did not have jurisdiction as agencies, working inside of fictitious agencies, in order for them to be able to take from the people and take children and take adults, what they had to do is they had to stop the attorneys from being constitutional. Because when they understand the Constitution and they understand the Declaration of Independence and the Federalist Papers and all those things, they end up knowing that we go by the law of the land or the common law. Now, when attorneys look at the law of the land or the common law, you'll see that they're called constitutionalists now. And it's looked at as a bad thing in front of agencies and attorneys who push agency courts. And so a court of record it actually still has 5 elements, 4.5 to 5. On the other hand, the new definition of court court of record. If you look between Black's Law 4 and Black's Law 6, I proved it online the other day. I had people actually pull up Black's Law and post it. And we found that now the attorneys only know one or two aspects of a court of record. And so I knew that she was saying that the court of record was, or these courts were courts of record because she got deceived. And so I just never had the time or the opportunity to have the discussion. So what I did was I invited any attorney to come onto my page and prove that these courts were, in fact, courts of record, and to show us documentation to let us know what a court of record was. Well, it ended up that Connie did come on, thank God, because we did have the ability to discuss this before the people with somebody who's honest. And so Connie came on, and I said, Connie, would you like to tell us what a court of record is? And Connie said, well, it's a court that keeps the records with the clerk. And I said, Connie, is that all that you want to say that a court of record is? Is there anything else you want to add? And she said, that's what it is. And so I asked her a question. I said, Connie, does a court of record also have the ability to fine and not just throw you in jail, but in prison for contempt? And she said, well, that's inherent in all the courts. I said, Connie, in a CPS court, when a judge or a person wearing a black robe that you would call a judge, which really isn't acting in a judicial capacity, but I said, when that person makes an order to you, Connie, and they say take a psych evaluation or go see the kid 2 times a week, and you say, no, I'm not doing it, I said, Connie, can they throw you in prison for that? And she said, well, it depends. And I said, okay, Connie, so when they are making this decision to throw you in prison or not, if they make a order in that court, is it an administrative order or a judicial order? And then she revealed something that should be very shocking to all of us. She said, well, it's a administrative order that is spreadable to a judge. Now let's think about what was said. It is an administrative order. So administrative orders only go for the administration and the business of the people who are part of that administration. It does not apply to men or women. So she said it is spreadable to a judge. Now you got to think about that.
That's what I was going to say. What does that mean, spreadable to a judge?
Well, it's like saying that they can take that administrative order and then send it over to a judge, and the judge can make it judicial.
Okay.
But there's a problem. Can a real Article 3 judge a situation when the people who were involved with the case are not there in front of him?
No.
He can't. So an Article 3 judge does not make judgments without hearing both sides fairly. So if you don't serve somebody and take them before a judicial court, the legislature has no power to give judicial power to ministerial officers who are working as a clerk for an agency. That's executive branch. So you can't take executive branch orders and make it judicial. It's always administrative. It never applies to men and women.
Okay.
Now, that don't mean they won't deceive you, and that don't mean that they won't get a police officer and deceive him and say, go pick up that kid because we're telling you to do so. In our administrative order, we're saying you have the right to do it. But see, if you notice, every time a police officer goes to pick up a kid when there's been no harm, they're using some type of statute where the state legislature just made up an act that said you could go pick up somebody's kid without a warrant. That's a statute. It doesn't mean that it's constitutional. As a matter of fact, statutes are challenged often for being unconstitutional. And many times the statute is set aside as unconstitutional. So it's not the law.
Right. David, I've argued this many, many times that statutes are erected specifically to void the Constitution. That's what
the statutes come from the Roman. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You go on.
Statute comes from. If you look up civil statutes, you're going to find that they're going to tell you that it comes from Roman court law or ancient Roman law. What the Romans wanted to do is find every single way they could to tax a citizen. Every single way. So, commerce is about charging money for doing business. Now, every chance that the Romans got, they wanted to make another statute to charge you for something. And this is why when we are in these so-called courts, they're coming with statutes to say we did something, but the statute already says that a person, which is not a man or a woman, is wrong before you even go to court.
Right.
The law says a man gets due process and has the right to be heard before a jury of his peers before a judgment is made to take away his property, his liberty, or his life. So if you're taking away, when Sandra Day O'Connor says that men and women have a liberty interest in the upbringing of their children, that's one of the oldest that has existed in the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court didn't give those liberty interests. God gave those liberty interests, but the Supreme Court has for a long time stood with the mothers and fathers saying that they have a liberty interest to their children. And she said a word that most people don't catch. She said that children are not merely creatures or mere creatures of the state or property of the state. I think she said creatures. Mere, meaning that they are not only. So the state believes that the children are property of them. And so in believing that, they're using a statute and fraud when they get you to sign a birth certificate to say that, hey, you pledged your little one to us. Now, whenever we want to tell you we're going to take it, we can just do it by statute. But the statute is not the common law. The statute is not the law of the land. The law of the land came from the Bible. And this is the true reason why attorneys and people in power don't want the Bible in schools, don't want people to believe in God and teach evolution so hard, is because if you knew the Bible, you would actually see their trick. But because you don't know the Bible, you can't know the common law. Then they hide the law from you by not teaching you civics. So when they don't teach you civics and they don't teach you the Bible, you get hit with a Star Chamber so-called court, some funny tribunal, and what ends up happening is you're thrown off so bad you don't know what happened, and then they steal everything you have.
You know, David, in that context, and I've had several conversations over the last couple of days with veterans that are talking about, you know, the military tribunals, Article 1 military tribunals. And one man kept saying, they can't do it, they can't do it, they can't do it. And I said, they can do it, and it has to do with your enlistment. And this goes to what you're speaking about, how you were viewed by the state or by that agency that is, in this case, the Department of Defense. When you sign up and enlist, when you enlist those papers, that's a contract. And if you read it carefully, you have just expatriated yourself for the duration of your enlistment, and you become, this is where the term GI came from, government-issued property. You have actually even given up your right to be calling yourself a human being. You are property. So if you were in the service, and I'm not, and you were, and we got into a fight, and I blacked your eye, broke your arm, I would get charged. One of the things I would be charged with as a civilian is damaging government property.
Government property. That's right.
Yes. And so for people who are saying that, you know, this is how you make this distinction. This sets, you look at Article 1, and this is what they use to create the military tribunal. They have moved people from being people and having rights and liberties protected by the Constitution. They took all of that away from them and redeclared them property. So they have no constitutional protections. Go ahead.
They've also done that with the word person. If you go back and you look in the Bible and you see what God says, he says, do not be a respecter of persons, or pretty much not to look at a man's person when you're making judgment. Now, this is what's funny. So if God says do not look at a man's person when you're making judgment, he's letting you know that a man can have a person attached. And the person is the position or the title of the man. And God is very good at explaining this because he lets you know about a man's person. And in the same verse, he lets you know to make, when he's talking to a king, he lets them know, make the right judgment no matter if the person is low or high. So he's explaining that the person is your rank. So when the term person is used in statute, is speaking of a entity, and they're claiming or presuming that any man or woman is a person. And when they say in a court, how do you plea? You is not singular. You is plural. They did not say how do ye plea or how doth ye plea. Ye in the King James Bible is there because it's showing you singular.
Oh, I see.
So when they say, this is why we're being dumbed down on purpose to stop us from understanding our position. And because we don't understand our position, we allow our employees to run us. I mean, let's just look at this at the basic level. Don't our public servants come to us and ask us to elect them?
Yes.
So then who works for who?
I have confronted them about this myself. I am not your employee.
Basic level.
Yes.
Basic level. Mm-hmm. Here's another one. The military, right? Do you know that there used to be a time that the people who worked in the military would look at men and women and say, it is an honor to serve you?
Really?
But for some strange reason, we now see that the people who are going into the work for the military, people are saying, well, if you're not military, you're not really of any status. The people who went and served in the military would say, I'm serving for my country. That's not the dirt. Honor was to be so brave that you will go out and lay your life on the line for the people. That's why real soldiers are going to war. Because they believe in all their heart that it is an honor to die for the people if you have to. That's the honor. That's why we praise them. Because they have that heart and that courage. But at the same time, the media and many people in the nation will try to make people who are regular, what they call citizens, look like a second class of person because they never served. Think about that.
That is, and I have encountered that. I truly have encountered that.
Think about the police.
Yeah.
You remember they used to be protect and serve. You don't really see that on the vehicles anymore.
No,
but
that was
protect
taken
and serve
off.
meant,
Yep.
Protect and serve the people. But now it is said, well, the officer has the right to go home safely at night. The officer has certain entitlements, which they do deserve to go home safely. But if you look at the average man and woman and you realize that's who you're trying to protect, you can de-escalate a lot of situations rather than escalating a situation because you have power.
Right.
And so when the officers, we've seen many officers come on live videos and go play basketball with kids in the middle of the ghetto, box with kids in the middle of the ghetto, get out and talk to them, laugh and joke, take them out to get food, pray with them on the side of the road. We have some amazing officers today, but the news is not displaying the officers who want to do the right thing and who understand their position. They want to show the ones who just shoot people without reason. And what that does is it makes the people afraid of the officers and the officers afraid of the people because the people get angry. But they're not highlighting and showing the good officers who sign their name and say I will die for the people. So working the way that it's supposed to. And all this is connected to courts of record because courts have hired police to be their arm to go bring people in for them to try cases.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It was all important. So when you talk about the military tribunals can work because somebody who signs themselves away by contract can be brought before a tribunal. This is why in CPS court they make you sign a document and says, look, you better sign this safety plan or you'll never see your kids again. Sign your rights away or you'll never get your kids. They do this because the contract allows them to dictate your life on paper. Now, they'll go and lie and say that you gave them permission, but they're doing it by extortion, by fraud. They're doing it through extortion, through fraud, through deception. They're acting like they are government and they are not. And so when you really understand what a court of record is, you'll realize that this whole agency thing couldn't work anyway. Because in a court of record, you can't let the agency bring all the evidence and a judge take their evidence as if it is true. Couldn't work. You hear Marty?
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
I am David. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, is what's happened there? This is. Yeah. This is why, like in a probate court, as they call it, judges can refuse to allow you to present evidence to refute what the people coming against you are claiming, and they never have to produce any evidence. But this is why, isn't it?
You want to know why that is?
Why?
The reason that is because when a tribunal is working in a star chamber type court or in a private business contract court, because it's not a court, it's just a business. The reason is because there is an agency bringing you before the court, before that entity, I'm not going to call it a court, and trying to say that they believe you've done something wrong, or they believe you owe something, or they have this belief that something belongs to the state and not you. And what they're doing is that it is a private contract, private business type of entity. So in a private business, when you go to McDonald's, the person who's leading the business meeting at McDonald's has the right to tell you they don't care what your opinion is and what you have to say. If you say my McDonald's outfit will not sell more hamburgers than my white T-shirt, they don't give a darn about what scientific evidence you have. They don't give a darn about your reasoning because none of that matters. As a matter of fact, in a court not of record, in a private membership meeting, they don't give a darn what your evidence is because they're not there to hear about evidence. They don't even have jurisdiction to hear evidence and right or wrong.
Oh, wow.
You remember, I think we looked at last week, the Guardian Ad Litem handbook, when they said that we're not in the business of looking at wrongdoing or meting out punishment or finding fault with parents. So what is that telling you? They're coming there for a purpose, and you think that the purpose is to find right or wrong or justice. And that's not what that entity is doing. The entity that is running a Title IV-E business meeting, administrative hearing, or court meeting, as they want to call it, but it's not a court, what they're doing is they're coming there to say that your child is dependent, meaning that they don't need to be with you. They need to rehome this child, and after a time of rehoming them, they get Title IV-E funds in their federal contracted business with the federal private corporation. They are working as private contractors. Everybody's a private contractor, including the man or woman wearing the black robe. That's why they can't make orders against you as a man or woman. They'll try to take your property and say it belongs to them. And of course, if everybody's on the same team and everybody's getting paid by the same money and everybody knows what the entity is about but you, of course they're going to all agree that it belongs to them. But here's the difference. Is there any man or woman who's going to stand up and say out of their mouth, not an attorney, not a guardian ad litem, not a judge, not a administrating hearing officer, not a some type of prosecutor. None of them are men or women. None of them are standing up and making a claim. None of them are verifying in open court that everything is true, and is not even a court in itself. That's why they can have hearings and hide all the evidence and not even give it to you. How in the world, in a fair proceeding, can somebody say to you, hey, you don't have a right to get this documentation because you might sue us?
Yeah.
So if you can sue them, apparently you're in the wrong court. Because if you're in the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court says, nope, your property belongs to somebody else, who do you appeal to?
Yeah, exactly. Who do you appeal to?
Yeah, in a Supreme Court, you ain't got nowhere else to go. It's the highest court in their jurisdiction, in their land. But in our land, the highest court is the court of record, the court that moves by common law. And if you don't believe it, we can all look at Article 7 of the Constitution, Article 7 of the Bill of Rights. If we look at it, it's going to tell us. Do you have your computer pulled up?
Yes, I do.
Let's look up Constitution or Bill of Rights.
Hey, David,
we're going to find some of them that are going to change the wording in it to hide the truth.
Okay. Go ahead, Brian.
And we also are going to have to go back and look at some things in the Bible to understand where we really stand. And when anybody on this on this call understands where they really stand and what's really happening and how we got tricked, they're going to go nuts. As a matter of fact, I might get in a lot of trouble.
That's all right.
David, I wanted to add in there, though, one of the things when you were saying, the U.S. Supreme Court is supposed to be the highest court in the land. And while I believe that there is theoretically correct, I also believe, though, that Congress should have the power over top of the U.S. Supreme Court because, like in our own case, I am going after all 9 U.S. Supreme Court justices, and I'm saying that Congress should be able to hear it because Congress is the only body that has the power to impeach the president, which is a judicial function. So, I can't say with absolute certainty that we don't have a remedy of relief through Congress. And I wanted to pull up something that I have, and while you folks continue to talk, I'll be able to locate that, I hope.
Let me say real quick, you're 100% right. That is one avenue and one method we have. We can go to Congress for grievances, but we also have to remember that Congress are the ones who write the statutes for private businesses to actually function in their own court. So
and another thing,
when the players are playing dirty, say it again.
What I was going to say, this explains to me something that since I got into this guardianship thing, which has been 10 years ago now, one of the things, and I have all these cases stacked up here, transcripts, numerous times, David, numerous, too many to count, these probate hearing examiners have literally screamed at people who said, I have constitutional rights, I have rights, have screamed at them and said, you mention the Constitution one more time, I will put you in jail. I will put you in. You don't have any rights. You don't have any rights.
You know why
they
say that?
Why?
When they're telling you the honest-to-God truth, you don't have any rights in this court, this private business, because they tricked you somehow into taking a contract or agreement with them to come into that place. And anytime you have a private business or a private court or a private membership association, a private membership association has its own constitution. Did you know that?
Yes.
So it has its own constitution, its own articles of organization, and it tells them how they can function and how you function. They're just not giving you the booklet. And then they have bylaws where when they change how something is going to work, they just write it in the bylaws, and then they give out what's called a publication, which is what you see as these so-called minute or minute orders that they're putting it out. They're making you think that it's some type of order. What it really is a private business 501c3 meeting, and they're changing the bylaws of the company, and they're holding you like an employee.
Wow.
And they're just not telling you. So when they say, are you the defendant is part of the membership association. You got to have somebody acting like an administrative hearing officer. Somebody got to be the guardian ad litem. So when you set the role in the act of the defendant, they now added you to the private membership association, and it does not have to go by the Constitution, and I'm going to prove it. If you look at the Constitution, there is nothing in the whole Constitution or anywhere in common law that says that you can adopt somebody's child out. Nowhere.
Right.
Adoption is strictly statutory and not found anywhere in common law. So if you can only take somebody's property or liberty or life by the law of the land, that means that you can't use the statute to do it. You have to go through a lawful process where people are judged by a jury of their peers, and the jury has to say they did wrong. And the Star Chamber Courts is meant to bypass that. Because back in the day when the king wanted somebody's wife, when the king wanted to do something that he just wanted to do, he'll go to his legislature and he'll say, hey, just make a rule that says I can have that person's wife. Just make a rule that says I can do this. Just make a rule that says it's okay for the king to do that. And this is why in the Declaration of Independence, we see this discussed. And the same thing, these crazy tribunals, these crazy courts that we dealt with in the 1700s and before are the crazy courts that we're seeing again. It's just they dumbed us down to not know our true position. And this is why we're not taught the Bible. Hey, I need you to pull up what I was asking you to pull up, and then I sent you a picture about a case that talks about the common law in the Bible.
Okay.
And I want you to read it off for the people. And when they hear this, because it's never quoted anywhere. As a matter of fact, Lazaro gave this to me the other day, and I want you to really see what it says, because when we understand what the real truth is and what they knew in the 1700s, we can understand when I explain what court of record is.
All right. Now, you're talking about 1 Corinthians?
No, you see the one that talked about is a messenger photo that talks about Robin versus Hardaway.
Hang on. Okay.
It's the last message I sent you.
Let me see. Okay. I'm not getting. Hold on here. I'm. It's moving slow, but we're moving. Okay. Okay.
I sent it to Brian too, if we need to.
Okay.
Yeah. Again tonight, David, I'm trying to multitask. I got Donnie Costra's here at my house, and we're trying to work on some things here too. So I'm trying to multitask. So I'm trying to listen in and keep everything moving forward.
Okay. I've got one. It starts out. It is not called a tribunal in its title. For example, an advocate who appears.
This one is the one that says Robin versus Hardaway. It's a picture with Lazaro's name at the top of the picture. If you want, I'll read it, and I can get it to you later.
Go ahead.
I want the people
go ahead,
to hear
because I'm not showing it.
Okay, so it says, Robin versus Hardaway, 1790. Jury of my peers, biblical law and common law supersedes all law, and Christianity is custom. Custom is law.
Okay, I just got it. Yes.
Okay. Now, this is really important, because one thing that we're seeing is that biblical law and common law supersedes all law. So if you don't want a people to be free or know their power, you take away the source of the law.
Right.
Because then there could be chaos and there's no standard.
Right.
So if you want to make 10,000 statutes, remove the law.
Right.
Now, people have been tricked by men like, what's the gentleman who made evolution, Darwin. He
yes.
was a Jesuit priest
Uh-huh.
who infiltrated and acted like he was a scientist. And people will say, well, I follow Darwin, and don't realize that Darwin is Jesuit Catholic trained. And
we're losing your, keep your phone, you're fading on us there time to time.
Oh, I'm sorry. He brought forth that idea in order to cause people to not know the law and not know their standing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you can remove the law from people and remove their standing, you can do anything you want to them. And so real quick, I want to go back before I explain court of record. I want to go back and I want to ask a question. Simple question. In the beginning of the Bible, in Genesis, when God created man and he created animals and he created birds of the air and fish of the sea, what was it that he said to them about their power in regards to the animals and the things of the sea, the creepy crawling things and the things of the air and water?
That he gave them dominion over.
Dominion. Dominion means what?
Control.
Control.
And
jurisdiction.
Care.
You know what that means?
No.
Mm-hmm. You know what that means, jurisdiction?
No.
Jurisdiction
I've never figured it out.
Control over. Control over. If I can tell you what to do and how to move, I have control over you. Now, here's the problem.
Okay.
If God told us to have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air and all the creepy crawling things on the ground, doesn't that cover everything?
You'd think so.
So then, if a man creates a company, how can the company have jurisdiction over him?
That's one of those riddles, isn't it? I'm trying to make notes while I'm talking to you, and my head is exploding.
Okay,
go ahead.
So think about this.
Okay.
So, I'll give you an example. If a man creates a car, is the car created to control the man, or the man to control the car?
Control the car.
If a man makes a government, is it for the man to control the government or for the government to control the man?
Well, we're supposed to control the government.
There you go. So here's where the problem comes in. What government entity has power over the people who created it?
These days, all of them.
Is it that they have power over the people that created it, or they have tricked you, taken away your knowledge of the law, and dumbed you down to think that they have power over you?
Yes.
That's the difference. That's the difference.
David, I want to go back to something that you brought up about the kids and what they're taught. I had 2 high school students here up until last year, and my younger granddaughter graduated. And I paid very close attention to what they called civics class. And everything, David, was taught from the aspect of global governance and what they owed the planet and what they should be doing globally. And didn't they desire global citizenship? My youngest granddaughter got in trouble in her civics class in 11th grade when the teacher said, and this was a skewed question that was asked. It was asked because they're trying to elicit a yes answer. You know, when people ask you questions, what they call yes questions, it's asked in such a way that even though you may disagree, you are prompted to answer yes. But the question was, do you think it's possible that you'll be able to achieve global citizenship in your lifetime? To which my granddaughter responded, I already am a global citizen, but I am a resident of the state of Minnesota. And she got a demerit and a detention. That lasted 5 minutes because Grandma went to school. But anyway, but they only talked about the Constitution. She came in one day and said that this was a 2-hour class. They had talked about the Constitution that day for a whole hour. I said, a whole hour? She said, yeah. She said, then the teacher said that they weren't going to spend any more time on it because it was, even though it was one of our founding documents, it was old and antiquated, and it really no longer was relevant. She, being my granddaughter, jumped up and said, no, it is not irrelevant, and don't ever tell my grandma that. She'll rip your tongue out of your mouth. And she said the Constitution is very relevant. She said it's just that people are trying to make it irrelevant. She got another demerit. This was a 4.0 student. Now, she got another demerit and 2 weeks of detention. And again, that lasted about 5 minutes, just long enough for me to get to the school. But anyway, you are absolutely right. And the kids in school are not taught anything about the law except what they could do that would cause them problems. In other words, breaking these infractions, these fictional statutes. You haven't committed an actual crime, except that this statute that they created took something that was your right to do and made it illegal. Or they said you can only go 55 miles an hour, and you went 56, so now we got you. This type of thing. This is what they were taught. But as far as being taught anything about the legal system, what we call the legal system, how these courts work, the difference that you're talking about here between these administrative tribunals and an actual court of law, or that there is any difference between what happens and how they operate, none of that is taught. Absolutely none of that is taught. They come out thinking, like 99% of the rest of the people we encounter think, that they are one and the same. And they're two entirely different entities.
That's true. It's definitely by design. And I'm going to say something to make people think, because there's a psychological concept that has been used against the people. And my schooling is in psychology, so I see it easily. When those who are in power want to use society to shame you into not believing or understanding the truth, what they'll do is they'll find some people who they can talk down on that it may be to the United States, may be an enemy to the people of America. And what they'll do is they'll say, look at these people. They believe this, and they'll make up a term, and they'll say, look, they're conspiracy theorists. They're conspiracy theorists. They believe this. They're so stupid. They're dumb. They believe this. They believe the earth is this. They believe that. And they say it so many times that it becomes a shameful thing, and they attach it to an enemy. And then after they're done programming the people that is bad, then they take it and they attach it to people who try to fight what's wrong. So to disprove this conspiracy theory idea, I'm going to take the man with the most knowledge of what's going on in the United States. Do you remember our great president named JFK?
Yes. John F. Kennedy.
JFK had a speech. Yep. He had a speech that you can go and listen to on YouTube. And John F. Kennedy said that in America that we are against secret oaths, secret proceedings, secret societies. The word secrecy is repugnant in a free society. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. Now, the man with the most knowledge at the time in the United States of America told us that there was secret societies and secret proceedings and secret oaths that men were using, who by covet means were a enemy to the United States and was trying to enslave every man, woman, and child. And he explained that this secret society uses guerrillas by night rather than war by day. He said no secret is revealed. As a matter of fact, every secret is buried, not headlined. That's what he said. Now, John F. Kennedy knew back then what happened, and a very little amount of time later, after he explained that there was a secret society trying to take over the whole world, infiltrating, he said they don't take over by coming through the front door with war. They take over by infiltration.
Yes.
They're sneaking in and taking over. And so I don't know if you ever heard of the Jesuits, but when you look at the fact that Bill Clinton, the one who signed in the Adoption and Safe Families Act, his wife wrote it, that Adoption and Safe Families Act came from someone, or was signed in by someone in Bill Clinton, who is from Jesuit, Georgetown University. Obama was trained and handled by Jesuit. We heard both Kane and Pence talk about their Jesuit history. We see Jerry Brown, one of the governors that is taking the most kids without regard for what parents are saying, Jesuit. We see Doug Ducey from Arizona taking more kids than anywhere else in the nation after in 2014 or 15 he went to go visit the Jesuit Pope, and then he started taking kids like there was no tomorrow. With not a single warrant, he will not talk to a parent. If you go look up the Jesuit oath, I believe it was the 62nd or the 63rd Congress of the United States actually put it on public record, where it was said in their own earth how they were going to infiltrate all governments, make war against all heretics. That means anybody who did not believe in the Pope. And they let it be known that they will wage war secretly or openly. And this is important because our law schools are ran by the Jesuits. Our school curriculum is ran by the Jesuits. The teaching that there is no God and evolution came from Darwin, who was trained and raised up with the Jesuits. If you look at Hitler was funded by the Jesuits.